Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into, well, a treasure trove, I guess you could say, of business wisdom with Reconnect Profit by Greg Larsen.
And let me tell you, this isn't just another, dry business book. It's like a jolt of espresso for your business strategy.
Ooh, I like the sound of that. Now, I have to admit, when I first heard the title Reconnect Profit, I was a little curious and maybe a tad skeptical.
Okay.
What's the Reconnect all about? It sounds a little, touchy-feely for a business book, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you're not alone in thinking that, but I think that's part of the genius of Greg's approach. He's not just talking about, boosting profits. He's talking about bridging the gaps, those disconnections that can secretly strangle a business from the inside out.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So who is Greg Larsen, and what gives him the authority to guide us through these treacherous business waters?
Well, Greg's been in the trenches, so to speak, for over 25 years. He's not just preaching from some ivory tower. He's been a multi-business owner, experienced those, exhilarating highs and those gut-wrenching lows firsthand.
Talk about street cred. So he's taken his battle scars and turned them into a roadmap for the rest of us.
Exactly. And that's what makes Reconnect Profit so powerful. It's a battle-tested guide born from real-world experience that arms you with a 5-step process to diagnose and treat those hidden disconnects that might be holding your business back.
Okay, so walk me through this 5-step process. Where does Greg suggest we even begin?
Well, he throws a bit of a curveball right off the bat.
Yeah.
He says we need to start with the person in the mirror, you, the business owner.
Wait, seriously? You'd think step 1 would be analyzing market trends or optimizing your website, right?
Yeah.
Why shouldn't it deep dive into ourselves?
Because, as Greg points out, we often have blind spots bigger than we realize.
Oh, I can relate to that.
We're so immersed in the day-to-day grind that we miss those, subtle yet significant disconnects within ourselves that ripple outward, impacting everything from our leadership style to our team's morale.
So self-awareness is the secret weapon we never knew we needed.
Absolutely. And Greg provides this, I think it's brilliant, this self-assessment tool in the book. It's not just a fluffy checklist.
Right.
It's designed to make you think critically about your strengths, your weaknesses, and even those hidden insecurities that might be affecting how you run your business.
It's like holding up a mirror to your entrepreneurial soul.
Exactly. And sometimes what we see in that mirror isn't always pretty, but that's where the growth happens, right?
No pain, no gain, as they say.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've tackled step 1, the often overlooked realm of self-awareness. What's next on Greg's Reconnect Profit agenda?
Step 2 is all about tapping into the collective wisdom of your team.
Ah, the people on the front lines. So how do we go about gleaning those golden nuggets of insight from our team?
Well, Greg's a huge proponent of face-to-face staffer says. Forget those, impersonal online forms. He believes in the power of genuine human connection.
So it's about creating a safe space for open and honest feedback.
Exactly. And it's not just about hearing what's working well. It's about uncovering those unspoken frustrations, those little things that might be dragging down morale or hindering productivity.
It's about reading between the lines and listening for what's not being said, right?
You got it. And this is where those face-to-face conversations are pure gold. You can pick up on those subtle cues, those hesitant pauses, those things you'd never catch in an email.
Fascinating. It's like turning your team into business anthropologists.
Mm.
Okay, so we've got the inside scoop from our team. What's next on this journey of rediscovering and reconnecting?
Step 3 takes us outside the walls of our business to the heart and soul, I guess you could say, of any successful venture. The clients.
Of course. Happy customers, happy business.
Precisely. But here's the thing. Most businesses think they know what their clients want, but as Greg points out, there's often a Grand Canyon-sized gap between perception and reality.
Oh, I know that gap all too well. We can get so caught up in our own heads and our own vision that we forget to check in with the people who actually matter most.
Exactly. And that's where those external perceptions become invaluable. Greg recommends online client surveys for this step. It's a great way to gather that intel without being too intrusive.
So it's about understanding not just what our clients think, but also how they feel.
You nailed it. And the insights you glean from these surveys can be eye-opening. You might discover that what you perceive as your biggest strength is actually a point of frustration for your clients. Or you might uncover a hidden desire for a product or service you never even considered.
Talk about a gold mine of opportunity. It's like holding up a mirror to your business, but this time, your clients are holding the mirror. Okay, so we've got our internal insights from our team and our external perceptions from our clients. Where do we go from here?
Now it's time for a little competitive reconnaissance. Step 4 is all about sizing up the competition.
Ah, the classic game of spy versus spy. So are we talking about like digging through our competitors' trash or hiring a hacker to infiltrate their systems?
Let's keep it legal, shall we? But in all seriousness, this step is about understanding the playing field.
Okay.
Who are your competitors? What are their strengths and weaknesses? What are they doing well and where are they falling short?
So it's about understanding their moves so we can anticipate their next chess move.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And Greg provides a ton of ethical and practical strategies for gathering this competitive intelligence. Think analyzing their marketing materials, checking out their online reviews, maybe even attending industry events and discreetly observing their booth presence.
I'm picturing you now, trench coat and all, blending into the crowd at a trade show, taking copious notes on your competitors' every move.
Oh.
Okay, we've covered self-awareness, team insights, client perceptions, and competitive analysis. What's the final piece of the puzzle?
Step 5 brings us to the often dreaded yet undeniably crucial realm of financials.
Numbers.
Yes.
Spreadsheets. Profit and loss statements. I could already feel my eyes glazing over.
Don't worry, it's not as scary as it sounds. Think of your financial statements as a business thriller, full of clues, red herrings, and a plot twist or two.
Okay, now you've got my attention. I'm always up for a good thriller. So how do we go about decoding these financial mysteries?
This is where we put on our detective hats and start analyzing those key performance indicators, or KPIs as the cool kids call them.
KPIs, I've heard that term thrown around, but honestly, I have no idea what it means.
Don't worry, you're not alone. In a nutshell, KPIs are those measurable values that give you insights into your business's performance. They tell you whether you're on track to achieve your goals or if you need to make some course corrections.
So it's about going beyond those vanity metrics like likes and followers and really understanding the numbers that truly matter.
Exactly. And Greg provides a ton of tools and techniques to help you dissect those financial statements, understand your cash flow, and identify areas for improvement. It's about making those data-driven decisions that fuel sustainable growth.
So we've meticulously gathered all this information. We've got spreadsheets overflowing with insights. Now what? What's the next step in this reconnect and profit journey?
This is where the real magic happens, but we'll dive into that right after a quick break. So before the break, we were talking about having this mountain of insights all neatly organized in our spreadsheets.
Right, all those spreadsheets.
But I have a feeling Greg Larsen isn't a let's just admire the data kind of guy, right?
You read my mind. Data's great, but it's what we do with it that counts. So how does Greg suggest we translate all this newfound wisdom into, tangible action?
Well, he's a huge proponent of bringing your team along for the ride.
So no sneaking off to a secluded cabin to single-handedly reinvent the business.
Not a chance. Greg's all about team conferences. He believes that real transformation happens when everyone's on board, rowing in the same direction.
Okay, but I'm picturing those, dreaded team meetings where everyone's, fighting over stale donuts and trying to avoid making eye contact with the boss. How do we make these team conferences, actually productive?
Greg's got a whole playbook for that. First off, ditch the boring PowerPoint presentations and those, endless spreadsheets. He's all about making these conferences engaging, collaborative, and, dare I say, even fun. Think brainstorming sessions, interactive activities, maybe even some healthy competition with prizes.
From snooze fest to strategy fest. I like where this is going. But it's not all fun and games, right? There are some serious issues to address here.
Absolutely. But Greg believes that when you create a positive and supportive environment, people are more likely to open up, share their ideas, and embrace change.
It's about building that trust and, psychological safety, right?
Exactly. And that's where strong leadership comes into play.
Speaking of leadership, Greg doesn't just gloss over this, does he? Leadership's kind of a big deal in all this, right?
You bet. In fact, he dedicates a whole section to exploring different leadership styles, from the visionary leader who inspires with their grand vision to the servant leader who empowers their team by, you guessed it, serving them first.
It's about finding the style that resonates with you, your personality, and your business.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to leadership. The key is authenticity. People can spot a fake a mile away.
So ditch the leadership mask and just be yourself.
Precisely. Embrace your strengths, acknowledge your weaknesses, and don't be afraid to show your human side. People connect with authenticity.
That makes sense. So we've got our leadership style sorted. Our team is fired up and ready to conquer the world. What's next on Greg's agenda for, business domination.
He's a big believer in having a clear strategy, but here's the thing. He's not talking about those rigid, old-school business plans that gather dust on a shelf.
He's not a fan of those 5-year plans that are outdated before the ink even dries.
Not a chance. The business world moves way too fast for that. He's all about having a flexible, adaptable roadmap that can evolve with your business.
So it's like having a compass instead of a map.
Yeah.
You know your general direction, but you're also open to exploring those unexpected detours that might lead to, hidden treasure.
That's a great analogy. It's about setting those big picture goals, but also being agile enough to adjust your sails when the wind changes direction.
So we've covered self-awareness, leadership, teamwork, and having a flexible strategy. What about those nitty-gritty operational aspects of a business? Does Greg offer any guidance on those, like day-to-day details?
Oh, he dives deep into those operational waters. Remember our friend Aqua Services from the case studies?
Yeah.
They uncovered a real mess in their inventory management. Stock was piling up, cash flow was a nightmare, and efficiency was, basically non-existent.
Inventory chaos.
Yeah.
Sounds like a logistical horror movie. So how did Greg help them tackle that beast?
He guided them to implement a regular stocktake system, establish clear inventory limits, and revamp their purchasing process. It wasn't about punishing anyone. It was about getting everyone on the same page and creating a system that worked.
From chaos to control. It's amazing what you can achieve when you have the right systems in place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of systems, I'm guessing those other case studies had their fair share of, operational hiccups as well.
Oh, absolutely. Take City Fresh Foods, for example. They had this incredibly manual, labor-intensive production process that was eating into their margins.
And remember, they were operating in that cutthroat fresh food market, so every penny counted.
Uh-huh.
So how did they escape the jaws of, low margins?
Greg helped them dip their toes into the world of automation. It wasn't about replacing people with robots. It was about strategically introducing technology to streamline those repetitive tasks and free up their team to focus on those value-added activities.
It's about working smarter, not harder. And that's a message that resonates with any business owner, whether you're running a bakery or a tech startup.
Now, we've talked a lot about tools and strategies, but what about those, aha moments that make it all worthwhile? What kind of outcomes did these businesses actually achieve?
Well, remember City Fresh Foods, our friends battling those razor-thin margins?
Yeah.
Not only did they manage to boost their profitability through those operational improvements, but they also caught the eye of a buyer and were able to sell their business for a very respectable price. Talk about a fairy tale ending.
Yeah.
They went from struggling to stay afloat to sailing off into the sunset with a hefty profit.
Exactly. And then there's Aqua Services, our family-run business, grappling with those succession woes.
Right.
They were able to not only streamline their operations and improve their labor recovery rate, but also bring the next generation into the business as part owners, ensuring a smooth transition and a legacy that lived on.
That's what I call a win-win. They strengthened their business. A&D secured their family's future. Talk about a double dose of Reconnect and Profit. And let's not forget, National Jump Hire, the company juggling 3 separate entities and facing those equipment replacement dilemmas. What happened to them?
Oh, they did a complete 180. They revamped their governance structure, crafted a multi-year plan for equipment reinvestment, and even created a more efficient and, you guessed it, profitable labor structure.
From juggling act to well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've established that Greg's Reconnect and Profit process has the power to transform businesses in the real world. But where do we go from here? Once you've identified and tackled those immediate disconnects, what's next on the, business growth journey?
That's where part 2 of Greg's plan comes in. And trust me, it's a game changer. But we'll delve into that right after. Well, actually, we'll just dive right into it. No need for a break.
So we're back. No break needed. We're on the edge of our seats here, about to uncover part 2 of Greg's master plan for, business domination.
Well, hold on just a second, because, Greg reminds us that building a truly successful business, it isn't about that mad dash to the finish line. It's more like running a marathon. You need stamina and strategy.
Okay, so what's the game plan for this next leg of the race then?
Well, he breaks part 2 down into 3 core elements. Sustainability, growth, and, wait for it, exit.
Hold on. Exit? Is he suggesting we cash in our chips and, retire to a beach somewhere?
Not necessarily, but it's more about recognizing that every business, just like well, everything in life, I guess you could say, it goes through cycles, right? So planning for that eventual exit, whether it's, selling the business, passing the torch to the next generation, or even just closing up shop on your own terms, it's all part of the journey.
So it's about being strategic, but also realistic about the long game.
I like it. Now, you mentioned growth as another key element. So once we've tackled those initial disconnects and, build a solid foundation, how do we keep that momentum going? How do we keep growing?
Well, he encourages us to really cultivate that mindset of continuous improvement. Never stop exploring those new opportunities, never stop innovating, and never ever fall in love with the status quo.
It's about staying hungry, staying curious, and maybe being a little bit obsessed with finding a better way of doing things, right?
Exactly. And it's not just about, chasing every shiny object that comes along. Greg really emphasizes how important it is to make sure that those growth opportunities you're chasing actually align with your core values, your strengths, and, your overall vision for the business. So it's about having the wisdom, I guess, to say no to those distractions that might lead you astray from your true north.
Precisely. It's about finding those opportunities that, they make your heart sing, but they also make good business sense.
Growth with integrity. Love it.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about that S word, sustainability. It's a buzzword these days for sure, but what does it actually mean in the context of building a business that, stands the test of time?
Well, Greg's view of sustainability actually goes beyond just being, eco-friendly. It's about building a business that's resilient, it's adaptable, and can really weather those inevitable storms that come along.
So it's about being prepared for those, unexpected plot twists that life throws our way, whether it's, a global pandemic or a competitor trying to steal your secret sauce.
Exactly. It's about having those contingency plans, diversifying those income streams, and always, always staying one step ahead of the game.
Sounds kind of like a tall order.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin with all that?
Well, I think, Greg reminds us that it's not about doing everything all at once, right? It's more about taking those small, consistent steps that over time lead to those big, beautiful transformations. Remember, marathon, not a sprint. Right?
Small steps, big impact. It's a good reminder that even those seemingly insignificant changes we make can have a real ripple effect, right? And speaking of ripples, Greg talks a lot about those, interconnected parts of a business. And he encourages us to really, look for those connections that might be hiding in plain sight. But what about those connections that kind of extend beyond the walls of our business?
You're talking about those external relationships, right? The ones with your clients, your suppliers, your collaborators, even your competitors. Greg reminds us that, we're not operating in a vacuum out here.
Yeah. It's about building that network of allies, of mentors, of partners, people who can support us, who can challenge us, and who can help us grow. It's about fostering those win-win relationships where, everybody benefits.
Exactly. And don't forget about your community. Greg's a big believer in, giving back, supporting those local initiatives, and really just using your business as a force for good in the world.
It's about understanding that our businesses are part of a larger ecosystem. And when that ecosystem thrives, we all thrive. Well, I have to say, Greg Larsen has given us a lot to think about today. We've unpacked those 5 powerful steps to reconnect and profit. We've explored those real-world examples of businesses that have actually used these principles to achieve some pretty remarkable results. And we even, dipped our toes into part 2, that exciting world of sustainability, growth, and, planning for that eventual exit.
It's been quite a journey. We've laughed, we've learned, and hopefully we've sparked some ideas for how you out there listening can apply these principles to your own business adventures.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up our deep dive, into Reconnect and Profit, we want to leave you with one final, I guess you could say, provocative thought. Greg talks a lot about, the importance of connecting those seemingly different elements of your business, from your leadership style to your marketing strategy to your, your customer service approach. But what about those connections within yourself? How can you, as a business owner, cultivate a greater sense of alignment, of connection between your personal values, your passions, and your business goals? Because when those things are in sync, well, that's where the real magic happens. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.